Welcome back to Joy's Love Story. I should be a little bit more coherent from here on out for these final two chapters. Night has fallen. I've had my little break that I needed after recording chapter 5. So let's get into chapter 6. This is where I started getting my revelations about what my relationship with Priesty really was, the spiritual aspects of it. When I finished off chapter 5, I had left it at the point where I could no longer find activity for Priesty happening in game because he hadn't been earning any more achievements in the previous couple of weeks. I was making excuses for myself. I did not want to believe that the cancer was going to beat him. I kept hoping that there was going to be some sort of miracle that would allow him to continue living for a long, long time. But about a week after I had been checking on those achievements, there was a morning that I woke up and found myself unable to move. No matter how much I wanted to get up and get my day started, my body just would not respond to me. It's not the first time that it had happened to me. It had happened to me in the past, but always when I was in the depths of my depression and things for me were just bleak and hopeless, and trying to get anything done seemed like a waste of time. That was not the case here. I was ready to get up. I had things I wanted to get done that day, but my body just did not want to move. A few minutes later, all of a sudden this thought entered my head. Wow, your hands really are tiny. I'm struggling to understand why this thought is coming into my head. I'm very much aware of how small my hands are. If you are curious yourself, standard iPhone, this is iPhone 11. Here is my hand. So compare that, if you have a smartphone of a similar size, compare that to your own hand, you'll get an idea of how small my hands are. But I'm like, what is this? I'm well aware of how big my hands are. Why would I have such a thought come out of nowhere? And next thing I know, my right hand is rising into the air. Then it's just left sitting there, and what is happening? I'm not doing it. I'm not dreaming. I know I'm very much awake at this point. I'm getting really puzzled, and finally my hand lowers, and there is a sense of someone moving slowly away from me with a sense of deep regret. The feeling of an opportunity that had been lost and would never come again. All of a sudden, I'm thinking of Priesty. Again, I'm not wanting to believe that he is going to pass away. And I'm trying to think of, gee, if this is something that was coming from somebody else, who else might it have been? And I'm thinking of all these other people, but deep inside, I knew it was Priesty. That it meant that either he had just passed away, or he was very close to it, because hospice nurses, ICU nurses, they will tell you that as someone becomes close to death, it's not unusual for them to have out-of-body experiences, and then when they appear to resume consciousness, because the nurse or whoever was around them has been thinking that they've been sleeping, they will get a response, oh, I've been traveling to visit so-and-so. That he was having some sort of out-of-body experience was very, very possible. Shortly after the feeling faded away, I was able just to start moving normally and got up, got my day going, etc., etc. But it worried me. Like, first thing I'm doing is checking online to see if there's an obituary. There wasn't, although it usually takes a couple of days for things like that to end up in search engines, unless it is someone who, a celebrity or otherwise extremely well known. So, didn't find any obituary for him yet. And then I remembered that the previous month I had gotten a new computer courtesy of my nephew because my old one was showing some serious signs of dying on me. He and my sister did not want me to be without a computer because they knew it was important for me. It was basically my connection with the world, since anxiety still makes it very difficult for me to go out and run errands and do things like a normal person. In the process of setting up the new computer, I had discovered that the launcher restored the chat conversations I'd had with Priesty in the launcher friend chat. At that point in time, I closed that chat out because it wasn't worth having that constant reminder of him on the screen for me, since he was no contact. But now, after that warning, I got extremely curious. I needed to know what was going on. I went ahead, I uninstalled and then reinstalled the launcher again just to get that conversation to reappear. Came up and it showed him as completely offline, not as away, but as completely offline, which left me with a sinking feeling. So over the next few days, I am looking for an obituary for him. I am looking on the launcher to see if he reappears as being online or away. 3 days later, he shows up again as away. So that was a huge relief to me. And it's like, okay, he is still with us. Good. So I just kind of went back to doing the things I was doing with less concern about him. Still denying that he was dying. Thinking, okay, we're pretty much at the start of the holiday season. He's probably just, busy doing other things with his family to the best of his ability. But I continue to watch to see if he goes back offline completely. He did a week after that. And I convinced myself, oh, well, maybe he's well enough. He's gone on vacation with his family or something. So he didn't want to be logged into the Battle.net app because there's still no obituary online. And I remember very, very early Thanksgiving morning, as I am getting ready to go to sleep, I'm just, saying my little prayer. And this time I'm adding on to it how thankful I was that he is able to be spending another Thanksgiving with his family, that it seemed more appropriate than normal, considering the circumstances. Then, if his doctors had been right, he would have already passed away months before that. Hoping that if his time does come in the near future, that his passing would be peaceful and gentle. When I go to sleep, for me, Thanksgiving is mostly just been a day like any other day, really. Family not being religious or anything like that. It was okay. It's an excuse for family to get together for a big meal, but I haven't been part of those big meals in years, thanks to my parents. And at this point, I have a hard time tolerating the presence of others around me for more than a few hours. So I'm just treating it as a normal day outside of making myself something a little bit different to eat than I normally would have. Go through my day, go to bed. The next day, I slept a lot longer than I normally would. I slept until the middle of the afternoon, which is, to me, was like, this is weird. But whatever, okay, going about my day, on through the weekend, going through my normal routine. In the middle of the following week, something in my head said, it's been a while, and you may want to check online and make certain there's still no obituary. I go online, there's an obituary. And I don't even click the link to it at first. I'm just kind of sitting there in shock because I was not expecting to see it. I pull it up, and indeed it is Priesty. He had passed away the day after Thanksgiving. I didn't even bother reading through the entire obituary at that point. It was just this thought in my head that suddenly came up that said, damn it, Priesty. You weren't supposed to die. You were supposed to get a miracle so that you could live and have a happy, wonderful life as you deserved for being the person that you are. So at that point, I pretty much just send a message to people that were expecting me to be doing stuff with them later online that night. Send a mail to my sister letting her know I'm going to have trouble getting stuff done for a couple of days because my friend had just passed away. Went off and cried for a couple of hours before I fell asleep. And now that he had passed, the grief was there, but it wasn't nearly as severe as it had been all those months before when I had first found out that he was dying. Probably because by then I was used to the idea of his life was over. So there was some grief there, and it was not heavy. And I think there's also a chance that there was something else involved that was preventing me from feeling it to the same degree. But I get some sleep. I go ahead, get up the next day. I'm still feeling very, very sad, of course. But the grief isn't really there anymore. I've accepted that it has happened. I go about my day. I'm getting stuff done slower than normal. I'm not able to concentrate or focus as well as usual. But I'm functioning. We all lose people. Life goes on. So I'm sitting there at my computer in the middle of whatever it was that I was doing that day, when all of a sudden I am blown away by this massive blast of pure love and joy and playfulness like I have never experienced in my life before. It definitely was not from me. And I, of course, knew instantly it was Priesty. That he came to visit me in spirit, to me, kind of validated my thought that perhaps we're part of the same soul family. I'm feeling so good in that moment with his spirit there with me, sharing his love, sharing his joy at being with me, being free of his body that had always been troubling him in one way or the other for his entire life. That playfulness, and he just wanted to have fun doing stuff, kind of like the way we used to mess around together online. it was wow. It was out of this world. It made me feel so good. Reinforced that sense of peace that I've been having ever since that day months before when he sent me the message in response to my letter went no contact. At this point, I decided, okay, now is the time when I need to learn more about him, because all I knew about him was what little he had told me, both, back over a decade ago, and then what little he had shared during that month that we were in contact before he started having his hospitalizations. Reading his obituary was shocking, to say the least. I finally found out what our actual age difference was. We were 20 years apart. I got to see what he looked like for the first time when I had seen the obituary the day before. I had noticed the photo being there. I hadn't really looked at it, though, because of the shock I was going through. Soul. His personality was shining out in that picture that they chose for his obituary. Okay, it's just like me. He also wore glasses. And then I started reading through the description of his life. And it sent me back to being a teenager, because almost everything written there was describing me as I was as a teenager. We both graduated our high school classes as the salutatorian, which is number two rank academically for the entire high school class. We both had all sorts of academic achievements. He had been in Boy Scouts and gotten the Eagle Scout Award. I had been in Girl Scouts, and for me, I mostly predated what are currently the top awards in Girl Scouts, which are the Silver and Gold Awards. What I had gotten was the Cadet First Class Award that was being retired right around the time I quit scouting. When I had gone to college, I did not actually go in with any specific plan in mind, because the whole years of depression and narcissistic abuse, I didn't really have a direction in mind for myself, although I had been leaning toward law. While that year in college that I did complete at my normal standards, I had done exceptionally well in my psychology class, to the point that my professor and department head would talk to me about perhaps picking psychology as my major or my four-year degree. I had also really loved my geology class. Academically, those were subjects that I was getting pulled to. I know his bachelor's degree. He did major in psychology. And I'm trying to get the name of what his minor was. His minor was legal environmental business, which means being environmental, you're going to have at least a little bit of a background in geology. He, of course, got his degrees where I never got a degree. He went on to law school, got his Juris Doctorate, passed his state bar exam. I talked about that previously. When it came to his hobbies, he is being described as an avid golfer and sports fan. Well, as a teenager, I played a fair amount of golf with my parents, and I was a big baseball fan, and I also watched football. It talks about how he was a dog lover and really loved his two dogs. Speechless. I To be honest, this is where I was a little bit different. I was not a dog lover. I was much more of a cat person. But part of that is because I had been attacked as a child by a pack of dogs running around my neighborhood, and I got bitten, and that made me very leery of dogs after that. Although there's going to be another reason involved that I'm going to get to in a few moments. They also mentioned that he enjoyed playing cards, especially poker. I played cards with family for years. They weren't that big on poker. We're usually playing other types of card games for the most part. But I do remember that as a teenager, when we would be visiting with one of my cousins, well, our parents were off doing whatever our parents wanted to be doing. It wouldn't be unusual for my cousin, my sister, and I to be sitting around a table playing poker, frequently using M&Ms as the poker chips instead of actual poker chips. The similarities between Priesty and me were uncanny to the point of it not being coincidence. I understood after reading through it that it was more than being part of the same soul family, and that the reason why soulmates did not feel right to me is because the relationship was not soulmates. We were twin flames. Twin flames being somewhat similar to what people tend to think of a soulmate as being, except twin flames are mirrors of each other. They've got the same aptitudes, the same interest, the same general personality, where those things have not been affected by the environment they've grown up in. We're just too much alike for there to be any other explanation. And as a lot of people, well, who are very, very experienced within the spiritual realms, discussion will say, is there's no such thing as a coincidence in your life if it has a big impact on you. Coincidences are the little things, like going to the grocery store and bumping into a neighbor. You just happen to be going there at the same point. The magnitude of the impact that Priesty had on my life goes beyond what would be coincidence. He was there to help me with my personal soul growth. And theoretically, I served the same role in return for him. But because we never really got a chance to talk about the personal side of his life, I don't know. I know that there must have been something about me that he felt a connection to, because I can't imagine why he would have had that out-of-body visit to me to talk about my hands and how small they are. That actually makes me wonder if somehow, while I was sleeping, my part of our soul was actually traveling to be with him, so he could feel my hand holding his all those nights, the time he spent in the hospital, even the time when he was likely back out of the hospital and at home. I think that the grief, once he passed away, was probably lessened because he was helping to lessen it. This was my revelation. Ours was not an ordinary, casual, online friendship. We were destined to meet in this lifetime and to know each other. Because we were on our twin flame journey, The one thing that didn't happen in our journey that happens in most twin flame journeys is we never met face to face, which is supposed to be an incredibly profound experience for those who have one. I think that was by design that we didn't meet, because I think about how strongly just the knowledge of him passing was to me, when at that point in time I had no reason to believe he was more than just a online gaming friend. How great that grief was. If we had ever met in real life and had that full twin flame union, flames realize that they are meant to be together, I doubt I would have survived his passing. I don't think I would have been able to handle it. And through other things that have coincidentally or not coincidentally come up on YouTube and other things that have happened over the last several months, I know that I am intended to be around here on Earth for a while longer, because I still have a purpose to fulfill. And I suspect creating these videos and posting them on YouTube for others to find is likely a part of that purpose. I do have more thoughts on all of this, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video at this point, give myself another little break, and then I will start recording the final video about the things that I have reasoned out and understood in hindsight, now that I understand that Priesty and I are twin flames. Until then, peace, love, and joy. Take care.